So I did this as well. I want my house to have bottle openers everywhere because I want this house to feel like it's a warm house where you can enjoy a nice drink next to a fire. So there's a bottle opener here. I've painted this scroll on and I've put a sword here for decoration. And eventually I will write the word Skål, which is, you know, the sort of Viking drink well. And people can come with a bottle and open it and carry on. I've got these all over the house.
Thank you, sir.
Line go. Kanpai.
Kanpai. Yeah, so tell me your fondest memory of Japan.
Fondest memory of Japan. Probably, of all the times I've lived in Japan, Kishikoganei, without doubt, is my favourite time. The year I spent with you, it was difficult because it was a time when you go to Japan, you go through 3 or 4 stages. You go Japan, it's like, oh my word, I'm in Japan. Then you start to learn about the Japanese ways, and you start to get aggravated by the Japanese, and you start to see through that veil of tourism. And once you've passed the veil of tourism, and you can see how annoying they are, you know, like, and how you can't do anything. But then you get to the next stage of the 3rd stage of Japan. I'm there, Japan. And I would say now I've entered maybe the 4th stage, where it's a case of, it's a longing to go back, and it's a longing to be there. It's like you belong there after a while, and you become a little bit more Japanese. Not wholly, but it sinks into you.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the stages, yeah, that assimilation fully into the culture.
Yeah.
Where this is home.
yeah. It's not a case of I am Japanese or you're definitely American, you're definitely English, but you get it. You understand why they are like they are.
Yeah.
It doesn't aggravate you anymore, and because if you're unaware of it, well, you're not aware, you're well aware of it, but they just take forever to do something. The planning involved and the red tape and the excuses for not doing it, and they never say no. Everything's, oh yes, that can be done, or we'll see, or maybe. It just means no. There's like you've basically got yes, that we can do that, all the way to yes, that's a possibility, which means no chance. There's no way it's going to happen, but they never say no. No Vacation Nova. It was the worst company I have ever worked for, and I hate working for other people with a passion. And they set out to get rid of you by the end of the year. I remember it, and it was well known within the company that they didn't want to hire you a second year because it meant they had to put your wages up. So they did anything to get you sort of gone after 12 months. They just wanted new people in, 2 weeks training, off you go, teach for a year. Do you remember working Christmas Day? Christmas Day at work, you know what I mean? In any other nation, or especially in the Western nations, we always give other people their day off. Okay, this is your holy holiday. Have a day off. Not Nova. Work. Oh, do you remember? I remember once when we first found out really about earthquakes. You have a few tremors, but then you might have a big one. And I remember being in a building, I think it was in Matsudo, and all the sort of like new people ran out of the building, and all the Japanese were just laughing at them. To us, it was a massive earthquake. I don't know what it registered. But we were like, oh, get out, because it was going on for ages, and the Japanese were like, no, stupid. Stay indoors. What do you mean stay indoors? Have you seen what's on top of my head? That was new, wasn't it?
I thought it was crazy it didn't affect the trains. Yeah. If you're in a moving vehicle, you don't feel it. You just keep moving.
Yeah, they just,
you know? Everyone else,
bit.
if you're at a standstill, it's like that rocking.
Yeah. It has to be really powerful to push a train to stop, doesn't it?
Yeah. But I just remember you could hear like a low rumble or something, like the build up to, and then it's just starts slow. And
Do you remember, like you sort of on the train and you're holding those things, and there's only Japanese men who can do it. I think it's men, and I'm sure they've got a special talent of locking their knees like a horse and just sleeping. And they're just... And always puzzled me. I used to go the same train journey nearly every week. We did certain days at certain places, and you'd watch someone asleep, and they'd be like, And then after like 12, 15 minutes, they go, "My stop," and get off. I'm like, how did you time that? They banged, literally. And it's not as if they're listening out. They are asleep, like dribbling asleep. How did they do it? Mystery of the world. So I arrived in Japan. I'd been away from home many times, but it's only ever been 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I was well used to travelling, but never for that long. And I'd never been outside of Europe before. So I was a bit nervous. And I turned up, and I remember being extremely jet lagged, and I couldn't think, and I was groggy, and I was like, what am I doing? You know, as much as I love Japan, I'm just randomly going away for a year of my life. And I remember going into the apartment. You guys were at work, you and Ben, and then I obviously saw which rooms you were in, so I knew I was in that room. My box was actually in there. I remember waking up and seeing you two, saying hello, and just being really, really groggy in Japan. But that was the beginning of the sort of adventure there, wasn't it? The sort of, hi, my name's, you're Ryan, oh, I'm Anthony, then our other guy. And that was it. We started in Kitakogane. Kitakogane. Which you always have to say in a robot voice, Kitakogane. So I met you guys, and it was like, you were clearly more attuned with what I was trying to do. And Ben was a nice guy and everything, but he just wasn't our style of guy, was he really? He was just like, you know, he did other stuff. He was very politics, you know, whatever he does with all that. And me and you were clearly in Japan to have some sort of experience. I was there for obviously reasons. I'm going to go train with ninjas. I've been into ninjas since I was a kid. Japan's the place for ninjas. I was full of it. But what was important is that this was the first time I'd really looked into the ninja after I'd been through university. I've talked about the processing power. Before that, I was just like, you read a book, oh, it says it in a book, it must be true. It's published, it's got somebody's name on the front, you know, they're a professional in this field. And you don't really, you know, obviously now we have self-publishing and it's much easier, but back then it was difficult to get a book published, or so I thought. So I just believed them automatically, and I was there like, yay, but I've turned up with this new processing power plant. And then I start going and it's, something's wrong here. So we were both on this path, me and you, trying to find some sort of culture or path there. And we found Tozenji Temple, didn't we? And it was just off. And there was Hondoji behind us, which I really liked. We had to pay to get in that, and Tozenji. And it was just this little temple off the wayside. It was gorgeous, wasn't it? And then me and you independently, because we had different shifts, would go there and practice. I'd practice martial arts, you'd practice meditation. I did some meditation there in this amazing Japanese temple with the lights down and in through all the seasons, because we were there for 1 year. And it was like a little solace away from everything. And there was that magical photograph that we caught or captured, or you captured and shared with us, which was where the snow, the lights reflecting off the snow. It was the most romantic place in the world. I don't mean sexually romantic, I mean like, you know, mentally romantic. It was the place to be. I've come to Japan to study. So I've come to Japan, I'm studying, I've got this gorgeous temple, and then I walked into the ninja hall.
I was always amazed by all the temples and shrines of the busyness of Japan, but for whatever reason you enter that space and it's just quiet.
Yeah.
Like, I never understood that. I don't know, it's like the brick walls around it or whatever, but that one especially, like there's a long path off the road, that initial gate, and you keep going. And yeah, I'd come at night, going for a walk, I'd hop the little fence, and I'd just like sit under that, you know, I'm just like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but
having a go.
I'm supposed to do this for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then yeah, that one picture when it snowed, and then I remember the cherry blossoms, and just like, I mean, it sounded like snow. There's no sound of the petals just gently falling down. I mean, most incredible place. And then there to the, we went to the Bonodori there, so like the local festival, and just all the little goldfish and pools and
plastic things floating somewhere.
We had those things that we did regularly. You'd come over for pancakes. My folks would send me syrup from the States.
Mickey Mouse pancakes.
Yes,
I remember
of course. There's a talent. You can make different things with the pancakes.
Yeah, they were really
and all
good.
the Japanese women that way.
Yeah. It's totally true.
Pancakes once a week, sushi once a week. It wasn't like it was like a Tuesday night. It was something where both our shifts aligned.
Yes.
And it was always on Tuesday, and we even had the freaking punch card.
Yep, it's a card, and after I think you got like a 3,000 yen or something after something, or a free plate.
Yeah. And then you use the little teacup, line it up to your plates. So you knew the teacup was 5 or 6 plates already.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, so that's how they quickly counted how many you ate. It was 100 and something yen.
It's actually 105 yen. I think it's 100 yen, but it had like
Okay.
a 5 yen tax on it or something like that, if I remember rightly. So you'd always be a little bit more than you'd counted.
Yeah.
I think.
Per plate. That was
Yeah.
$10 for amazing sushi.
Oh, I remember the first time we ate it, and I could only have 3 plates of sushi. And by plates, they're tiny, aren't they? But I was like, I've never tried sushi. And the idea of eating raw fish in the UK, you may as well sign your death warrant if you eat raw fish in the UK. And like that, it was the most gorgeous thing I've ever tasted. I've been addicted to this day. I would never, ever, ever eat sushi outside of Japan. Except some Japanese say New Zealand is very good. Well, maybe.
So I feel like that was kind of the first place, though, that we became regulars.
Yes.
It was like the sushi chef recognized us. He welcomed us every week because we had that routine.
Yeah.
You know, so most people, like the local cafe or coffee shop or whatever, you get to know the people that are working. They say, hi, here's your drink. We know what you're going to order.
Yeah, yeah.
That was for us in Japan.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it used to be really annoying if there wasn't 2 seats spare and we had to wait.
Yeah.
You know? Or they'd take the... I think sometimes the sushi chefs were taking the mick. That they were having fun. Because you'd order in Japanese and we, you know, just learning. And they'd be like, oh, what? What? And they'd make you say it about 4 times. And you know they knew what you were talking about because they've only got like 20 things on the menu. But they'd just, you mean this? It's like, come on, you've said exactly what I've just said.
Yeah. Yeah, so I remember you were always into the history. And you went to whatever dojo with your master teacher and coming back and telling me that just a bunch of fat white Americans, basically. And yeah, the whole process, something was off, but also it wasn't for you. Like you came to train, and you sought out this master teacher, and something was off.
Yeah.
And especially the type of people that you saw in there, you would think would be, you know, fit. I mean, I'm doing my ninja practice, but no, it's just some guy from Texas.
Yep.
Showing up with a beer belly and
yep. Money hungry.
Going through the motions. And then yeah, the whole money piece of it as well, of how much they charge per training session. Yeah.
So there was one guy, and basically he must have been as young or as old as I was, maybe 25, 26. And he came up to me, never spoke to him before, he came up to me and went, look at that! And it was a Japanese handwritten thing. I was like, sorry, I don't know what it means. And he said, that's my 10th dan, I've just had it signed off. And I just watched him, it was terrible. He was the worst martial artist I've ever seen. I thought, I'd knock you out, mate. Get out my face. And I just thought, put the boot in. And he just was like, showing it in everyone's face. I was a 10th dan. And I thought, that's meant to be someone who's got to the end of their life and mastered everything in the school. And that's when I saw he basically bought it and you could buy your grades depending on how much you gave and who you knew, and they were doing that. I was like, are you joking? And they was really starting to put cracks in them. So there's 2 sides of it. One side was the attitude was wrong and the setup was wrong, but also the history was wrong. So I hadn't made my decision then or understood, but it was the beginning. It was that wedge split.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know about the different styles or whatnot and grading system. I just know my perspective from the States is that if you do whatever form, that there's always the physical test. Like you memorize a certain set of movements and you get the next belt. Yeah. Like that's basically all I know. So this wasn't that.
No, not really. In fact, in this system, they basically just had to show something that they had created themselves. But in fairness, in truth, all they had to do is go up, somebody attacked him in any way, and he did whatever he did, and he did that a few times, and then it was signed off. But you could tell it was just a circus. Mm-hmm. He just was like, that's... To be a 10th dan of someone's system, you have to really, really know every form and thing inside out. And like you're talking about the forms, there are none that even though they should be, they just had none. Just make whatever you want up, and if I agree it's all right, then you get your belt. But it was all paid for in advance anyway. You know what I mean? It was just, yeah, it had to be sponsored basically by other people, and then they put him forward, and they just got the money. It was just a money racket. It was basically a swindle. So me and you were trying to get the Japanese culture, weren't we? We tried to. You straight away were all over the language, and I was not. And in fact, I actually put almost no effort into the language, but you were straight on it. So it meant we pushed you forward to talk to anyone who was Japanese. We didn't venture to go on, Ryan, you talk to him. And you were literally only a couple of weeks into learning, like, he'll sort it out, it's alright. And you left very soon, got your own apartment, and I used to walk down to the station, and when our things matched, as you said, you'd make the pancakes in the morning, and we'd get ready and travel to wherever we were going. But we, what was I going to say then? Did we often teach together or not?
On a rare occasion.
Rare.
We'd both be at Matsudo.
Yeah.
So usually you'd be filling in for a shift for someone at, that would be awesome.
That would be good. Yeah. So the best thing we ever did, without doubt, in Japan was the Kashiwa Festival. It was Bonodori, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was that summer before we left.
And it was amazing. And I remember you were late because there was an earthquake and the trains had actually stopped. It was a big earthquake. And I remember that it was the strangest thing. I don't remember what magnitude it was, but everybody's ready to know. The next thing, and the windows were flexing. I've never seen glass flex like that. And the bridge was moving. And I was like, and everybody went silent and gripped and just went. The next thing somebody went, everyone went, it's just like, Akashiwa Morori. Chan, chan, chan.
And I was on the train, and the train stopped, and I was like inching forward, and then you got the guy come on and announce, okay. Then we go back to the previous station. I had to like walk 2 stations basically to get, so I walked for like an hour and a half to come meet you.
And my girlfriend at the time, wasn't it? Was in the parade and called Keiko, and she was dancing in the parade and wearing an orange fire suit, and they had all the teams dancing, and we were part of that situation. And I just remember the drums were loud, they were hitting your heart, you know, that beat was going boom boom, and we were all dancing in a long line, everybody was clapping. It was one of the greatest days of my life, that, because it was an achievement. It's like, you want to get into Japanese culture, that's the moment. However, since then I've learned that you go much deeper, and you join family life, and I've lived near or with different families, you know, and friends and translators and things like that, and you go much further in, and but that was the highlight, I think, of my Japan times for those years.
And you got me, I mean, because it's one of your private students or student or something that did the shodo, the traditional calligraphy.
She was a student of mine, very low level English, but very nice. And she said she'd teach calligraphy, wouldn't she? And you used to visit her, I think?
I went once every 2 weeks or once a month, yeah.
Right.
And you came once or twice, but yeah, I went from day one, and all we did was itchy. What? One line.
Yeah.
Learn the proper stroke and just over and over and over. Just that one stroke, and then the vertical stroke. Okay.
This is an example of where the Japanese don't understand, and they follow dogma. This is where they don't get it right. You're clearly not there to be a shodo master. Yeah. You're there to have a go at Japanese writing, really. You know, and she's like following the process. You do it, and you get all the points right. But you want to learn, just have a go, and where do you go, and what should I do from here, and give me a broad idea of what it is before I decide if I'm going to be a shodo master. You know, but the Japanese are, oh no, you have to start at number 1. Yeah. And that's it. And then maybe next year we'll do number 2. Like, I'm only here for a year. I'm trying to taste the culture there. However, I think they've got better at that now. They sort of understood a bit. Okay. So an example of where people think, oh, just believe Japanese people, you know, because is exactly that. I did some research into very old ways of doing things, and there's a shodo master, and it shows that they don't sit in the traditional seat. They sit sided, they're drinking alcohol, and this master's got written on a nice day in autumn, drunk as a fart. And it's a masterpiece. And he's not sat the correct way, and he's just like, yeah, because he's obviously a master and he knows what he's doing. But the Japanese are like, no, we must stick to this very formulaic, which turns out is not so proper for old times.
But it helps with their, I mean, from us, their culture was more of stand in line, stand on the left, don't move.
Yeah, get out, swing your umbrella.
Train doors open, everybody get up, stand to the side, let them out, you go in.
Do you remember them crushing them on in the morning?
Oh, God.
And then new people get to Japan and they run for the train. The train! You're like, just wait.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Oh. Or the other one is it's your train, but you know to wait for the next one because you're the first in line, which means you get a seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, do you remember, as Western lads, we'd always stand up for a woman.
Yeah.
But then another Japanese old man would run in and sit in the space. You're like, this poor woman's like, you're like. I remember seeing my first sort of real problem in Japan was a woman had fallen over and was on the floor, and 2 men were running over towards her, and I thought, oh, they're going to help. And they just jumped over and carried on running. They were jogging. I was like, are you joking? You know? And so I had to go up and take, they just didn't care.
It was just the idea that we wanted to live like the Japanese. I mean, that was the point.
Yeah.
We want to sit on the floor.
Yep. Well, we got our place set up so you could sit on the floor. We learned how to make sushi. We both got Japanese girlfriends. Now, a lot of people in the past have, or a lot of the people who are sort of against my work, they've said, "Oh, you went there just drinking and thinking," and they don't know I was teetotal. Then I've only just started drinking the last few years. I was absolutely teetotal, and we very rarely went to Roppongi, did we, or anything like that? I think we went twice or 3 times, and we're never really into that. But we tried to go there and have the Japanese experience and sit on the floor and make sushi and New Year's Eve where we went and did the bell.
Yeah, local temple.
Yeah, and then we got the food. I think they were serving the New Year's Eve food. It was like that, the stew.
We did the Christmas cake, even though we had to work on Christmas, but we still had the Christmas cake.
We had the Christmas, and you had that excuse for a Christmas tree. I've got a Christmas tree.
Charlie Brown tree. It's all good.
Yeah. I was like, an American doing Christmas, it'll be a big triangle. There'll be Bob. No. Genius. I remember being on a train. This was many years after we'd been in Japan together, and I remember being on a train and I'd just been to see someone, and for like the umpteenth time I'd been disappointed, or not got what I needed, or the Japanese were being difficult, or they didn't. I went to see someone and I thought they really don't know what they're talking about. And I sat on this train and I remember writing down, don't talk to anyone. If you want the history, go to the landscape, go to the actual physical equipment they used to have, the clothing, the tools, and then go to the documents. They're the only places. So I wrote those down, those 3 specifically, and that's where I focus then. I absolutely focus on getting a feel for whatever, the landscape, the hills, and where they were and what they were doing, how would they do that. I then tried armour on, and the swords and the tools and the rope, and how could you physically do that. And then I also, of course, had the translators working on the documents. And that's far more impressive than somebody who just happens to be Japanese and has done basic research from a modern book, which is never good enough for history.
So when you came back, because I went to visit you, a year later?
It was we were there together in 2004 and 5, and you came back in 2006-7.
Okay. So when you came back, what was the drive? Was it still to earn money as an English teacher?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, so
when did the shift come to that was now your focus and passion?
That's a good point. So in the 2004 when we were working together, that was purely to train as a ninja, because anybody could be a real ninja if we went to Japan, and to get money to do my master's degree. I came home, did the master's degree. I then went back to Japan and worked for a company called Shane to get the money to do my PhD. But the economic crash had happened, the 2007 job, it just didn't work. So during that year is when I handed out the... I'd known something was wrong. So during that year I handed out the homework. and that was when Yoshi came back and said something's not right there. So 2007, 2008 is the first time I said to myself, this is actually wrong. So I have to say, what is wrong? So it's only now I really understand what is wrong, but then I knew something was wrong and that was not correct, but I didn't know what was correct. So that was the point from about there, 2008.
Okay.
And then, so I actually received a lot of threats over the time. I've received loads of threats. I've had videos where they're just basically hate videos. I've had people throwing knives at pictures of my face. I've actually been offered out a sword fight and a duel in the morning, and they were going to kill me and everything, which I turned up to, and they never turned up. Soft asses. And then, you know, I knew it wasn't real, but at the end of the day, it was just getting a lot. I could always, people have said, how did you handle that period, Anthony, when all they did is get emails? And it's, to me, the answer was, it wasn't difficult. They were morons. They were like, you're an idiot. You know what I mean? I would love to talk to these people if they came up and said, Anthony, I believe this for X, Y, Z. And then I said, well, actually, it's this. And we both get it and we say, well, even though we disagree, I hope I've shown you why, and you've shown me your stuff, but it still doesn't change my mind. There's nothing there. But no, they were just, we're going to kill you, murder you, kill your cat and everything. It was like, what are you doing? So they're just not worth it.
Were they Japanese?
No, with the heck. The Japanese think I'm brilliant. No, they were the heck. They were all Western. They were English. But there's, basically, you've got people who are massively invested in their art. And they have put a lot of cash, a lot of time in. And I don't mean a lot by like a year or two. Some of them 40 years plus. So imagine 40 years of paying through the nose. And then somebody who's much younger than you, who doesn't speak Japanese, comes along and says, actually, that's wrong. And they're struggling then. And so I don't mind. They blow up with emotion. And they get physically violent, or say they will, and they get angry. And I've read websites made about me. There's a website out there basically calling me a fraud, a liar. And that's strange coming from them, seeing as I'm saying there's no historical proof for anything you do. Here's some historical proof. Fraud! That's not how the word fraud works, do you know what I mean? But of course, I thought everybody would be okay just based on logic. And everybody would logically go through as adults. Totally, it's an emotional battle. It's like religion, an emotional battle. In fact, some people in those organisations, or some people consider those organisations to be actually technically cults, because they will not listen to reason,
So I could be way off on this. But the idea of like watching Ninja Scroll or some anime, it's that idea that at some point you've honed the practice, so it's less about the physical and more about kind of like a yoga, letting go of the ego. So you're talking about people that have been doing this for 40 plus years, yet they're still stuck on the physical. Like they can't look within or they can't move beyond that. So to me, that's not an advanced practitioner. But that's me personally coming from a different lens.
I would actually say that's the universal problem for all of these paths. So I would say that goes across the board. You always find there's people who know they need to find a path. And they're clearly above the rest of the crowd. They know they've got to find a path. But they involve themselves in it for 40 years. It's just a physical, and all they focus on is where can I get to, who can I be, how do other people see me. Same for yoga, it's all very fake. But actually the samurai talk about this, and they say a true practitioner does go beyond the physical. But there's something called premonition through chi. And this idea is that when you're so accomplished and your mental abilities are so acute and fine, you can sort of sit there and go, something's not right here. There's a problem, something's going to happen. And the idea is like not predict the future, but feel the wave of change coming, and then you need to move. So yeah, but these people don't aim for that. They are stuck at, how many Dan grades do I get, and how many. I hate grades. I think grades and levels should be totally abolished in all schools on all subjects. There should be no such thing as a grade, because we call this black belt sickness. Basically, the moment you've achieved your black belt, you forget to train anymore, and you just put on loads of weight. You don't do any training, and then you just
get what's called teacher's disease. So black belt sickness stops you progressing, and then teacher's disease means all you want to do is teach other people and tell other people. But actually you then no longer progress. It's your journey, not somebody else's. So internal, please.
Sweet.
Sweet. Alright, sweet cheese.
Yeah,
Let's do it.